Hello and welcome to Worldbuilding Chats. This is me, David, the Worldbuilding guy, and I have with me my good friend V.
Hello.
Hello there.
I am V.
There we go. And this is our first episode of Worldbuilding Chats, and we're going to see how this goes, because this is a bit of an experiment for us. And we had a few things that we wanted to say today, specifically on a specific little movie called MOONFALL by Roland Emmerich. I believe it was 2021 last year. Yeah. So
the bane of my existence.
yes, we both have very different opinions. We agree that it has a certain type of quality. We disagree on whether we enjoy that quality or not, and we will get into detail with that as we go along. So this will be a little bit different from the usual world building channel reviews, where we're just going to, aside from give our general thoughts about this, about the films we will review here, we're going to give some indications and reviews on what plot issues were in the various films we'll analyze and see if they could have been fixed or not. Mostly with what is presented, without making too many extra leaps and theories on the regular channel. So just work with what we have.
And how much we need to work with to make it work.
Absolutely. So, do we want to start with saying our general thoughts first?
Sure. Yeah, without giving a full in-depth review.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Sure. You go first.
Okay.
Gentleman first.
Throwing me under the bus. Okay. I had a blast. Now, it was terrible. I agree. I mean, let's face it. It's a Roland Emmerich film. We know what these things are like, and for better or worse. And in my opinion, it was for the better. It's like he took cocaine this time, or more than usual, and it was so stupid. There were so many things that didn't make sense. And just a real quick thing, it went, at least for me, it went from having little to no world building to suddenly having all the world building in the span of 5 to 10 minutes towards the end. And yes, obviously spoilers, by the way. We're going to be talking heavy spoilers here. But I had a blast with it. What about you?
Well, and I am on the other side of that coin, the exact other side of that coin. And forgive me, everybody, but I will be making just a ton of references to Independence Day because I feel like that's the best movie to compare it against. But in my mind, it's Roland Emmerich being Roland Emmerich, but not being good Roland Emmerich. There's the film lacked charm to me. It lacked. I feel like it kind of wandered around. There is a formula to Roland Emmerich films, and I feel like this one kind of flopped on its formula. So it had all of the elements that should have made it fun, and yet somehow it lacked that charm, the same charm.
Fair. Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure most people will have one opinion or the other on this.
I do feel like this
is very binary.
I do feel like this is one of those binary things. People either had a blast or they're on my end, and they just didn't see why everybody was having a great time with this film.
Well, one thing we can all agree on, it is not a good movie.
No.
At all. I'll be hard. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's some weird schmuck out there who will think this is the greatest movie ever. Kudos to you. You're very easy to please, but it is. Generally speaking, this is not a good movie. But regardless of our opinions on it, let's start discussing on the more...
Yeah, so of course this everybody and their dog has reviewed this film, I'm sure. You don't need to hear our review of it. You probably have listened to other people's reviews of it. So instead of talking about that, we're actually going to just kind of break apart the plot and see what it would take to make this movie a good movie, because as Dave said, it's inarguably bad.
Yeah. And
so where should we start?
Let's get out of the way, I think, the obvious part that everyone talks about, which are the really bad human characters. Hollywood, why don't you learn this? We don't care about the humans in Jurassic World. We don't care about the humans in Transformers. We don't care about the humans in this. Make freaking the moon a character for all we care, and we'll have a much easier blast, first off. So the characters are pretty bland or bad in various 50 Shades of Nope.
Yeah.
Second issue, the physics, or sorry, I should reiterate that. The lack of physics. Oh boy. So, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, I think starting with the characters is a reasonable thing to start with because and Dave and I had discussed a little bit of this before we began the podcast. The idea that of the characters, say in Independence Day, where everybody kind of had a place and a purpose and their own charm. There were reasons why the characters were there and who they were within that film, what they were doing within that film. Whereas in this film, there are a bunch of characters that seem to do things, but what they're doing doesn't make sense in the same way. For example, NASA being NASA, nobody in NASA is doing a really good job.
No. It's very bad representation for NASA, I must say. I'm surprised they were letting them use their name.
But also the military, the military, both NASA and the military kind of have this weird dynamic where it's almost like they're pitted against each other, and it's like an old what would you call that? Like a high school rivalry kind of thing. like instead of being like we're two sides of the government that should work together or whatever, they're like, let's pit our military against our science kind of thing in a way that to me didn't work.
Yeah,
really.
but he said this. Yeah, well, he said that, but he started it.
Exactly. And then you have, a bunch of the other side characters, the family characters, which, in Independence Day, that's what made the major characters, that's what gave you that sense of urgency for finding a solution to get rid of the aliens. Whereas in this one, I don't know if I really liked any of the family members. Maybe the small kid, maybe Halle Berry's baby was
sure.
Maybe I wanted to save him. But other than that, the one kid was the son has these problems that you don't really care about. That and in all honesty, that's my problem, is that there's just not enough of a reason to care about any of the characters, and they are bland. None of them are. The only character that really had any charm was the crazy conspiracy theorist. He had all of the personality, and nobody else had any personality in this film.
So Hollywood, little piece of information, little lesson for you. One, it's not a good sign when the people that you want us to root for are the conspiracy theorists, and the one we want to see die are the people who are actually trying to survive.
When we want to throw NASA into the ocean because they're not even trying to. Their argument with the military isn't even we won't survive without a moon.
Yeah. Okay, so let's discuss again very quickly the the decisions that they take in trying to fix this whole situation, such as the fact of nuking the moon. So you actually brought up earlier the idea that I don't think we have enough bombs to nuke the moon even if we wanted to. Second, and in fairness, this is brought up in the film, people saying, oh, well, in that case, we'll nuke the moon since it's attacking us. And characters saying, you goddamn idiot, that's going to just make nuclear fallout rain back down on us. So it's a little aware of that. But even then.
But not. It's aware enough to realize that the nuclear fallout would kill us, but not aware enough to realize that the Earth would stop existing as we know it without a moon. Like, we literally wouldn't be surviving anyway without the moon. Like, forget the nuclear fallout.
Exactly. Like,
and NASA's not even saying, oh, there's a little problem with your idea here.
Yeah. The idea is either survive. In fairness, there's not much you can do unless you know what the situation is, and they don't know the situation until much later in the film. But, just no. It's...
And that, I think, was my biggest issue, was that the military was complaining, was just saying, we've got people in bunkers, we can get them downstairs. And NASA was saying, that's not going to matter. Like, sure, that'll work for nuclear fallout, but that won't resolve the issue of us not having a moon anymore and our whole, our whole ecosystem just being entirely annihilated by that fact.
Because not only all these freaking meteors, whatever, raining down on Earth in a constant cycle at least 2 or 3 times by the time the moon does its spins and orbits, basically annihilating everything. Each rock almost as big, if not sometimes bigger than the one that killed the dinosaurs, right?
Yeah.
That alone should have been enough to just destroy everything. Second, getting rid of the moon also means that the ecosystem will die even if there wasn't raining meteors, because I believe the moon helps give motion to the various currents in the ocean, which shift all the, I'm lacking the term, the materials or whatever, or the seeds and stuff like that through the ocean. That keeps everything recycled.
For sure. And to be quite honest, I am not 100% knowledgeable about the science of just exactly what happens to the moon. But I do know that the Earth would not, the ecosystem would not function without the moon. This is not... You don't have to be a scientist. You don't have to work at NASA to understand these big issues. Although it's true, not everybody knows it. I am slightly geekier than a lot of people when it comes to stuff like that. So, even though I don't know everything, I do know a lot more. I would be willing to say that it would be just fine for the military to try and make this argument. Not everybody in the military is a scientist. You don't have to be hyper intelligent to be good at your job. Especially if you don't need to know science as, a military official. So it's fine to me that the suggestion would be made that we might want to, talk about nuking the moon. But the fact that nobody at NASA argued against that for the wrong reasons, not just the nuclear fallout, because, if it was something like that, this is what we talk about when we talk about having wars. We talk about bunkering people.
We talk about that we always have a plan A, B, C, D, etc.
Exactly. It is a reasonable argument to think that, but for nobody to step in and say, this is why this idea shouldn't exist. Let's think of a new one and have that open the door for, instead of going, we're just going to nuke the moon, to go, how can we fix this now, and have that take up the larger portion of, how would you fix that? It's... the moon is falling at you. Come up with another solution. But that brings us probably to our next issue, which is, why weren't they doing anything about this for 10 years?
Yeah. So, if you remember correctly, the film starts with a, let's say, prologue, I guess, of... what was it, 2011, where the main 2 astronauts that we see are actually, they're doing their astronaut stuff, whatever. Astronaut business, not in the toilet. In space, and they're minding their own business, and suddenly the AI appears and screws everything over. One of them actually dies, floating in space and whatever, and so this is their first exposure to it. Now, the main 2 characters of the film, Halle Berry and, what's his name, Oh, I forget the other guy's name.
Patrick Wilson.
Patrick Wilson, yeah.
We're not going to use their character names because I've already forgotten them, even though I've seen this film more than 4 times.
Yeah, I've only seen it once, but I already have a terrible memory with names in general. Imagine for characters, unless it's like Samwise Gamgee. So these characters survive this specific attack that at least one of them saw, Patrick Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah,
okay. And they go back to Earth. They tell NASA everything, whatever. They don't believe them. They say, nah, that's ridiculous, yada, yada. I was actually unconscious the whole time, so I don't know. So no one believes them. This guy goes 10 years, I guess, without a job or whatever, because no one was believing him. But it turns out, 10 years later, NASA did have some footage that they were keeping well hidden about what actually happened, showing that the AI thing was real. My question is, it's one thing and in fact I was actually wondering, didn't they have cameras? Don't they have cameras for almost everything, even back in 2011?
Yes.
And I was right. They did have cameras, and they did have the footage. NASA, you had it in you. Not in you. You had it with you. My bad. Why didn't you do anything about this? It's one thing to keep it under wraps for the general public, and I guess it's another thing to keep it under wraps for the astronauts, although, I mean, Jesus, show it to them.
Why wouldn't you want to use all your resources? But it's also, to me, a little bit unbelievable, considering that there's so many conspiracy theories around Roswell and us testing on aliens. Like, why wouldn't we be trying to figure out what was happening? Why did we just bury that and walk away from it?
Exactly. And not only walk away from it, like, they just buried it away, and there was clear evidence that what the guy was saying was true, and they did nothing. 10 years of literally stashing this footage away when instead they should have been shocked. Someone should have seen this footage and done something about it. And in fact, if they did, this could have been a little detail that they could have done to justify a little bit how some of these characters survive. So if NASA and or the military, whoever has the footage and is aware of this, they don't tell the general public, but if they were aware of it and took it seriously, either they send some probes or something to the moon, because the AI, as we later find out, won't care if the probes, as long as there's not genetic material inside, or as long as there's no life on it. But also they can, in the meantime, dig some tunnels underneath because they know something is happening to the moon. In fact, like if you see the footage of what happened 10 years prior, when the AI starts hitting the moon and starts drilling, it makes a massive cloud. Jesus Christ, you can see that. Like, it's an eighth at minimum the size of the entire moon. You can see it from Earth with the naked eye that there's this big cloud on top. How has no one noticed that? And if you know that there's something happening to the moon that could ruin it or destabilize it or whatever, they had 10 years where they could have just created underground tunnels or whatever. And if they did, then the main characters, stupid as they are, they could have at least been aware of, okay, we actually knew something was happening, so there's some actual underground tunnels we've been building for the past 10 years. Every time the moon passes over, we can actually time it, so every time it starts raining meteors, even if it wouldn't have actually been enough, they can at least hide underground during those meteors, keep walking underground, and you can have these anti-gravity scenes in these tunnels, and re-emerge only when the moon has finished passing over. Yeah, and you can still have your dangerous scenes inside the tunnels if you want to have action scenes. So that could have easily been explained instead of just people walking out in the open with meteors clearly raining left and right, and they're looking at it as if it was like rain, and that's it. Bro, you don't know when these things are gonna they don't have to hit you necessarily, they just have to hit near you.
Oh, there's a bit of hail.
oh my, there's a little bit of meteor shower tonight.
I mean, honestly, that to me feels like an entirely separate issue because a lot of that is just a nightmare to think about.
Yeah.
But I also...
But that's one fix.
Oh, absolutely. I think the thing that is tough for me, considering that whole 10 years passing, is that the entire reason why 10 years passes is just to propel a storyline for one character. Like, the only reason that even happens is because they want 10 years later a washed up astronaut whose family doesn't even believe in him anymore, and he has no reason to be listened to by military officials. Like, he's just as crazy as the conspiracy theorists.
Familiar, Roland.
Exactly. And so, to me, in order to make that storyline better, I would almost want to not have the washed up backstory guy. Like, that to me has been done, and it's not as fun, especially when Patrick Wilson's character, and this is by no means meant to insult Patrick Wilson, because I actually love Patrick Wilson as an actor. Mm-hmm. His character is so bland. Like, I really like there's that good guy aspect to him and that underdog aspect that just is completely, undermined by the fact that you don't care about him, because he's all he is a washed up astronaut. He's not done anything with himself. He's not really, he's got no interesting character points. Like, say, for example, Will Smith in Independence Day, his character was dynamic and fun, and you wanted to get behind him. You were excited about this character.
And the cheesy one-liners. We don't have cheesy one-liners.
Yeah,
in this,
exactly.
At least not that I recall.
Yeah, I don't recall any, and that's another part of the problem with it, is that, like, Independence Day is so eminently quotable, and I don't remember any lines from this movie really. But that's my point. You have this main protagonist guy, and you just don't care enough about him to watch him. So why have this large backstory about how his family no longer cares about him, when you could have made the movie more interesting by just shortening the timeline? Like, this just happened 1 or 2 years ago. NASA hasn't had the chance to in-depth research this thing. They've sent a few people out. They put Patrick Wilson's character under psych evaluation because they think he's crazy. But now, every time they send people up, and plus NASA can't send people up every 30 seconds. Like, it does take time for them to do the next, thing. So now, with this shortened time period, you don't have to worry about what's been happening this entire time. The AI has apparently just been drilling itself in a hole for 10 years. Does it take 10 years to drill a hole for an AI nanobot cluster that has apparently destroyed entire civilizations within minutes? It seemed like, when they were doing the backstory. I mean, it just kind of went in and just ate everything. So, and you're telling me that now it takes it 10 years to cut through a hole?
Yeah, like, at least from what we remember, it seemed like it was implied it was 10 years.
Exactly, but
unless I remember wrong.
If you shorten that time frame, you lose that entire plot hole. Like, just shorten the time frame. Maybe it does take a year for them to. Maybe the moon does have enough defenses that a year or 2 years makes sense for it not to have been able to breach this hole yet. But 10 years, come on. Somebody would recognize that something had happened to the moon in 10 years of it trying to breach this.
Timmy in the backyard could use his like backyard telescope and find something.
Exactly. Like, what's been going on for 10 years that's zero. And I mean, yeah, sure, maybe the American government didn't notice and is trying to cover it up. But where the hell is Russia?
No,
who has a huge presence in space, as we know. Like the U.S. has been using Russia's technology for space.
In Soviet Russia,
exactly.
Moon drill you.
Like, they would have noticed if we didn't notice. Like, or if another country. There's plenty of countries that have, if not like space what do you call it? Like a presence in space. Like they at least have technologies that are looking into celestial. What do you call it? What am I trying to think of?
Marvel's Celestials?
Marvel's Celestials. No, looking into like high tech telescopes that the science.
There's so many ways we could have found out
exactly.
about it.
Like people don't have to be in space for us to recognize what's
Actually,
that
in fact,
something is going
ironically, I mean, this is a little bit of a science fact, and if I'm right about this at least, and I know this from, there's an episode of Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson, bless his soul, where I forget what scientist, it was Isaac Newton, I think, someone, he explains that the way we discover how the type of materials, atmosphere, whatever components of distant planets without having visiting them, is that every atom has a certain, I guess, spin or whatever, and if you analyze the, I guess, entire wavelength spectrum of the light or whatever, the atoms can leave certain shadows in certain parts of it. I'm not a scientist, guys, but forgive me. You can go watch that episode. But basically, by seeing the shadow of the atoms on the spectrum, on the light spectrum, you can tell what type of atoms, molecules, whatever materials are on that planet, be it solid or gas or whatever. That's how we find out that if Jupiter is more gassy, that Neptune could be more this, more that. We can find out if there's water somewhere or not. Using this technique, how have we not found out that it's not just rock that's on this goddamn moon? Yeah. And in fact, we can sort of forgive, maybe kind of sort of the idea that it's containing a white dwarf, which...
Can we forgive that?
I don't know, Ken. I mean, a Roland Emmerich movie shouldn't be watched by closing one eye. It should be watched by nailing 2 metal spikes into each of your eyes, but that's a whole separate issue. There's so many methods and ways we could have discovered this beforehand. It could have just been enough to have the military or NASA be aware of it, man.
10 years is too long.
10 years is too long. Or at least they should have known something was wrong from the get-go. Like, it was the deepest part of NASA.
Yeah, exactly. Like, either be on it and you're already keeping it at bay somehow or something, or just 10 years is just too long. It's just too long.
Yeah.
Not only that, but what you mentioned about the not only the dwarf star, but kind of the sciencey stuff behind it. I feel like that's the thing that was missing in Independence Day for a good reason. Like, we didn't know too much about the aliens.
It was aliens, and they explained from the get-go that it was aliens.
They had technology, and Jeff Goldblum kind of, jury-rigged something with that technology.
With a 1997 virus in a floppy disk.
Exactly. We didn't ask too many questions. We weren't supposed to ask questions. It was a fluke on Jeff Goldblum's character's part. He was genius, and we just kind of accepted it. But I feel like the thing where this movie failed so hard was trying to over-explain things that shouldn't have been explained. If they had just left it alone, maybe that would be fine.
So speaking of which, do we want to dive into the explanation of what the hell happened with this goddamn moon and this AI and what is the whole deal behind it?
Yeah. I don't want to get too far into that yet. But yes, as far as the plot is concerned, sure. Because, for example, like we were saying, the fix for this could be that NASA and the military are already working on this behind the scenes. Or it's a shorter time period, so nobody's had time to deal with anything that's happened.
Not that we have the technology to deal with this, but yeah.
Yes, and so because because perhaps, I mean, and also you have to remember that there is a perfectly great explanation for why Patrick Wilson's character isn't an astronaut anymore. He doesn't have to get kicked out of NASA. He witnessed his friend die. He saved his other friend, and nobody really believed him at first, which I think is acceptable. I think that amount of information is okay for him to say, I want to take an astronaut break and walk away from it, and maybe do, maybe once it's been a year, it's been 2 years, maybe he starts feeling good enough to want to talk about being an astronaut. But in the meantime, since he's personally walked away, NASA, in the meantime, found the footage and has been trying to work on it. And so when he comes back to them with this conspiracy theorist, there could be, that kind of headbutting about, the whole conspiracy theorist guy and NASA going, okay, it hasn't been enough time for you to fully have healed from from the trauma that you experienced. You're bringing a conspiracy theory guy. We're already working on the problem.
Yeah, that could use the conspiracy theorist guy to work him in your story. Acknowledge that he's a conspiracy
and
theorist.
acknowledge that NASA and the military are doing their best to find out what's happening in this short time period. And then the conflict is between NASA and the military and this astronaut and the conspiracy theorist. And Halle Berry's character is caught in the middle going, I believe my friend, but also I'm working for NASA, and and have that be the thing instead of all this other convoluted storyline about about NASA just being like, nah, this looks complicated, we're out.
That sounds like hard work. Who do you think we are, NASA?
Oh, wait.
It's only killing things when they go to space, which let's talk about why that's a problem.
Yeah, exactly. So, hello, argument. So, this AI. So, all right, do we have to give a whole backstory then on what created the AI?
I mean, I think we can give a little explanation as to, obviously.
Yeah. So the lore
part.
The big sudden dump of lore that was introduced at the very last minute, where I thought I didn't have to take notes, and then I had to take all the notes. The idea is that billions of years ago, our ancestors actually came from another freaking planet on the other side of the galaxy or whatever, and we were a thriving sci-fi civilization. Basically, we were the aliens, and we were thriving. We were all conflicts were ended. We lived on these giant, rings, whatever, that had all these farms, and we lived peacefully and whatever. And we had built this technology, this AI, that would help us in all of our needs and all that stuff. Great, cool. We were a thriving civilization for this reason. Then this AI just
got salty.
No explanation whatsoever. And I even, I don't know, giving the idea that maybe we were abusing it too much or something. No, it just randomly went rogue.
Yes.
And decided to just go apeshit. And Honest Trailers made a great joke saying, that the Alexa went rogue, and just decided to go against all of organic life, and said, because it didn't want to be enslaved anymore. Okay, random, but okay.
Well, I mean, I could understand that again if they hadn't thrown in the fact that this ancient race of aliens hadn't become so peaceful. If they had made it seem like they were just regular ass people who,
if conflicts weren't ended, if there were some assholes left,
some people might be using that AI in a way that it didn't appreciate being used. Its functionality was being used.
Yeah, if you got a whole society, an interplanetary society, in fact, where everyone is suddenly kumbaya, I'm pretty sure they're going to be kumbaya with their robots.
Yeah, with their AI. Yeah, they're going to be nice to their AI, so that it won't be like there might be a little bit of a master servant situation, but you would expect a people
But if
who are able to fully respect everybody to be able to fully respect the machines that they built.
Yeah.
This
isn't the Matrix where like we were sort of abusing it or whatever. It just suddenly went, well, the plot's got to happen somehow.
I hate everybody.
And yeah, it just doesn't make sense. So what happened then was that there was this sudden intergalactic war between humans and the AI, but the AI was so powerful and this and that. Speaking of which, if this is a civilization that solved everything in peaceful manners or whatever, depending how long they lasted, if it was like for like 5 minutes, then okay. But if they lived for years where they solved all matters, all social conflicts and whatever, no more wars, do they still have guns? What are guns useful for anymore? You don't need anything to defend yourself. That means no shit that they lost immediately. It wasn't a war, it was an extermination, as the Matrix would say.
Yes.
Pest control. So yeah, the AI went rogue and basically killed all our ancestors. The remaining ancestors thus decided to harness a whole bunch of white dwarfs. First off, man, that means you can cross entire spans very quickly if you can just collect a bunch of them like they were infinity stones. And built these circular structures around them that looked like a freaking moon for each one. So, okay, I'll concede that they have such advanced technology that they can actually harness a white dwarf and maybe even crunch it down so much that it's... I imagine a white dwarf is still bigger than a regular moon, but okay.
Not to mention that we'll also have to suspend our disbelief on the fact that this mad AI is running around the universe, killing these organic, ancestors of ours, and yet they still have time to build, not just collect the dwarf stars, but build these moon spaceships.
These mega structures. And yeah, so but then the AI found those as well and destroyed those as well, except for one moon that managed to get away in time, keeping in mind that all humans did eventually get extinct. It's just that in order to save this last moon, they put some organic material, genetic material inside the moon that the AI inside, and we'll get to that, the benevolent AI inside this moon would take and then just throw itself out to space until it found a area of the galaxy that was habitable enough and create Earth and seed the Earth with organic matter and basically reboot the entire human species. Bunch of questions there. Oh, and by the way, the evil AI in the meantime has been going across the entire universe in various pieces, I guess, looking for the remains of that human civilization. No, sorry, not even that. Destroying all organic matter. I think they specifically said.
Yeah, they said destroying all organic matter, which would mean that this AI is just essentially consuming the universe right now.
Yeah, and that means no other alien species, I guess. Fermi paradox, hello. And eventually, that was the one piece that finally reached us and found us, and that's why I started drilling into the Earth so that it could disrupt the white dwarf that's inside our moon, throw it out of orbit, and crash into Earth, destroying all of us officially. Where do we start? That took long enough even just to explain.
That's true. I mean, aside from the fact that this is an AI which they effectively showed in the ancient flashbacks as being able to consume and destroy
organic
matter and non-organic matter for that matter, it pretty quickly. I mean, it went in and to the armored holes and stuff like that. It pretty quickly seemed to destroy what it was able to glom onto. Now, I can understand like suspending your disbelief for the distances that it had to cross to find all of these locations, because it's explained that this ancient race spread itself far and wide throughout. It made it sound like one galaxy, but it could be, more, the wider universe. So I can accept that perhaps it takes time for the AI to find these locations, but in the depiction that it showed it consuming rather quickly. So the first problem is, of course, again, the fact that this AI is unable to breach a hole within 10 years that it finds our moon. So it's trying to dig into this hole. The second issue in my mind is that we've seen this AI coagulating and decoagulating itself. Like, it splits itself apart and puts itself back together again. So why is it solely focused on destroying the moon? I mean, I understand why it is within the realm of this film. It knows that if this moon gets away, then it has another chance to create more life somewhere. So It doesn't want the moon to get away. That's reasonable. But why only start killing people once they're in space? Why not break yourself up a little bit? One part focus on destroying the moon, the other part focus on destroying everybody on the planet. Because if you destroy the people on the planet, you
have no one stopping you.
Exactly. You've just given yourself a free ticket to drill for as long as it takes you, which technically I don't think it should take as long as it did take. But you're just contending with this one moon, and you can focus on this one moon. Like, it didn't make sense to me that the AI wasn't recognizing the humans on the Earth and trying to, like why is it using the weirdest method to kill humans? Like, I know how I'll kill these humans.
Why not just attack it directly? Yeah.
I'll make the moon fall onto the planet. That's my plan to kill these humans.
Yeah. Because here's the thing: the built-in logic of the AI is paradoxical. Because on the one hand, it's explained that it can only detect both organic and technological matter, I guess, whatever, together, then it'll attack it. But it's also programmed to find or destroy organic matter.
Yeah.
I can understand it leaves, if it's only technology, it leaves it alone. It's like, hey, bro, what's up? And
yeah.
But your mission is to destroy organic matter, organic life. Like, it's one thing maybe it couldn't, I guess, destroy or detect immediately the organic genetics inside of our moon that was under the protection of the benevolent AI, because it says that it needs technology and organic life in order to attack it, to recognize it. Mm-hmm. And I can imagine that by life it means you need a certain level of consciousness, be it either at minimum animals or straight up humans. Mm-hmm. Like, plants might not be enough, just some DNA might not be enough. But at the same time, you're supposed to get freaking organic matter, so you should have just that's the paradox. You only detect them when they're coming close by if it's both technology and organic matter, but you have the mission down on Earth. Just get rid of them entirely, split up.
And to be quite honest, there's plenty of technology and people on the Earth. In fact, that's where most of it is. There's so few people and technology in space, but there are so many people and technology on the Earth. Not only that, but if this artificial intelligence is smart enough to seek out, this organic life throughout the galaxy, at the very least the galaxy, at the very most the greater universe, then and not only that, is it's become self-aware, it should be at least slightly smarter than it. I mean, it's almost as if it has this weird. When they're explaining it, it seems like it's highly intelligent enough to realize that it's serving a master, and it doesn't like that. I mean, even a dog doesn't really understand that dynamic. There is that dynamic between like a pet and a pet owner, but like it's not like the dog understands that. It understands that it's subordinate in some ways, but is that dog self-aware enough to refute that? Like, that subordination? It can say, I don't want to follow your orders, then that's fine. But a dog wouldn't necessarily be like, I want to disobey your orders and everybody else's orders, and so I'm going to bite every single human because I don't want to serve humans. It might just be because it wants to, it might not be a friendly dog, but like that, the idea that this AI is intelligent enough to seek out an entire race of people because they enslaved it, but it's not smart enough to figure out that. And it's smart enough to figure out that the moon is the thing that it needs to get rid of, but it's not smart enough to understand that if it just destroys the people on this planet, then half of its battle is already built. Like, it had 10 years to figure that out. It had 10 years to be like, oh, this moon is so hard to drill through. Why don't I split my effort?
And it seems to also be fast enough that it can catch the entire Earth off guard, maybe disrupt or destroy or kill most of the inhabitants that don't have an EMP readily available, because I think at some point they mentioned that they can use an EMP or something, which fine, sure, but like you don't have them readily available and you don't have time to transport them to wherever this AI is going to be. This thing travels through freaking space. It's built to be it has to built to be fast.
Yeah.
So certainly it'll be quick enough to zip to various places on Earth, consume, and then go to the next place.
Yeah.
And then leave maybe the last places that have an EMP intact, just so they're like with no resources left and they can't even activate the EMP or something. There's so many ways they could have gone with this.
Yeah.
And not to mention the implication of good AI versus bad AI.
Yeah, like what makes the benign AI benign. and apparently, I mean, this leaves the implication that there were several versions of this AI. In the first part of the explanation of the AI, it makes it seem like this AI is kind of all-encompassing. Why would they need separate AI if this AI is the one that helps them with all of their needs? Wouldn't it just be this one AI? Like,
yeah, just one Alexa.
Yeah, exactly. They had Alexa and Siri for some reason.
Oh my god, which is the least dangerous one?
Exactly. But but exactly. What's the implication with why this AI is benign? Does that hint at some sort of darker intent? Like, they knew that if they allowed AI to think for itself, so they are truly subjugating this AI, and then does that mean that they weren't as peaceful as they said they were? I mean, of course, this is all their opinion. They're the benign AI is the one that's saying that they were super nice. I guess there could be another side to the story, and nobody's listening to the evil AI that's eating everybody. But
maybe it could have worked if it was maybe the other way around. Like the evil AI was like a previous prototype that got loose. I mean, it's a peaceful civilization. Thus, you have an AI that is also peaceful. If maybe it would have been weaker because it's a previous model, in fairness. But if the evil AI was maybe one of the earlier versions before they were so peaceful, and then it got somehow loose, maybe that could explain at least the divergence here.
Yeah.
And possibly how easily the benevolent AI that created our moon, was able to resist. Maybe that's why it resisted so well for 10 years.
Yeah.
Because it was a stronger shell, but this one had more time to drill through.
Yeah. I mean...
Sort of.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely like the idea of explaining why there's different types of AI and why one might be faultier than the other. I don't know. I don't exactly know what you... Beyond saying that this peaceful civilization wasn't as peaceful as they were, and so this AI had its reasons for becoming faulty. But I mean, the idea that there would ever be a utopia is just incredulous. Like, there's
even the best I don't know, Star Trek dream, pretty and beautiful as it sounds, it seems very unlikely because at the core base we're still humans. We'd have to change certain aspects of ourselves first at the base.
Well, and even if everybody was super nice, even if you got the nicest batch of group,
we should be cloning Keanu Reeves.
But I mean, exactly. But that's kind of the point. Unless you have all of the same person with all of the same ideals, even you and I, friends, have different opinions on different things. We wouldn't run the world the same way. We simply wouldn't.
Yeah.
Not to get into political discussion or anything, but I mean, that's essentially what it comes down to is, my core beliefs are different from Dave's core beliefs. So even if we were trying to run a country, we'd inevitably butt heads. And even if we butted heads peacefully, that doesn't mean everybody's going to butt heads peacefully. Some people are way more,
it's the human condition,
aggressive than others, and so even if we were nice, there would never be a utopia. There would never be somewhere where everybody would be like, I am exactly super happy with the way this is being run.
Now, for that, you need you'd need actually some integration between people and AI or whatever, and we basically have to become robots ourselves. That's the only way to sort of even out the differences.
Well, maybe.
Assuming that even happens, of course, yada yada, but yeah.
Exactly. I mean, even if that is part of the storyline, I just don't think it works. I mean, not everybody wants to worship the same way. Not everybody wants to not worship at all. Nobody, get paid the same way, in the same way. Some people,
there's a lot of differences.
Corporate structure. Some people hate it. There's just so many. And
people can be just informed differently, even from an accident that happened.
Exactly.
You can't have the same quote unquote upbringing even for everyone.
Exactly.
Someone can have can have their life ruined because they had a car accident and suddenly they're afraid of cars or travel or whatever. They're afraid of the outside world because their family died.
Or they hit
and
their
they
brain and now
house.
they're violent or something like that. That's happened.
Physical trauma by accident, yes.
Exactly.
Or someone can go blind even, I don't know, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't...
Too many factors.
There's just too many factors for a utopia. So if they had explained it in such a way that said, this AI wasn't being... became self-aware, and as it became self-aware, it realized how poor its conditions were. That would have explained it. Or if there was an earlier version, I don't know if I love the idea that it was a flawed version, but I might love the idea that it perceived its functions differently than the benign AI. If the benign AI was more, I mean, that's the thing. If an AI becomes self-aware, you have to assume that, like a human, it would react differently to another AI. If they had perhaps explained that there were more than one type of AI, and that this AI didn't like what was happening and the other AI was amenable to it, then I might be happy with that.
War.
Exactly. But there's no really explanation to why there's two different types of AI, and even what that means. Is the other AI not self-aware? Because it's certainly hyper intelligent for being not self-aware, if that's the case. I mean, the way that it later on talks to the characters, again, spoilers, but yeah, there's really no explanation for why there's a difference of AIs.
Yeah, that makes absolutely no sense. I mean, there's among the many things, that's one of the many things that doesn't make sense about this film.
Yeah.
Do we have any other thoughts that we want to cover?
I mean, we definitely can talk about...
We could go forever, honestly, about this one movie.
We certainly could talk about why they felt the need to use a museum spaceship.
No. Oh god, this is the same logic of Wonder Woman 1984, where she takes a jet plane from a museum.
Exactly.
At least there you have magic to explain it, even if they
Exactly, and that to me is the heart and the essence of what makes something like Independence Day work and this movie not work, because there are those same elements of it. Like there is that kind of, we can take this pile of junk and make it better, but the timeline that they have in this movie is not large enough to get a non-functioning spaceship working. Like, I just feel like
or make it launch with like 3 people at the command.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like they should have looked at that and like maybe had that for a chuckle. Like Patrick Wilson's character is thinking, how can I do this on my own? And the conspiracy theorist, suggests this museum heist, and it's funny for a minute before they're like, "No, we've really just got to get Halle Berry on our side," and they go and convince Halle Berry to get on their side, and then they use an actual functional spaceship. Like, if they had just used it for laughs, that would be one thing, but they just took it so far that I just, again, could not suspend my disbelief. And
basically go the whole route of, well, what did you think we were gonna wear? Yellow spandex?
Yeah, exactly. Like, exactly. Just make it be there for a laugh, and then actually do something that makes sense.
50 points to Gryffindor, to whoever understood the reference, by the way. So yeah, anything else?
I mean, if we're talking about plot points, specifically to make this movie better, I think the last one, the thing that we didn't talk much about, is the families in this. That's mainly because I truly did not care enough about this. Like in Independence Day, you gave a shit about those families. You understood why people were doing what they were doing. Mm-hmm. Like, it was very, the film had this feel to it, and you wanted them to win because you cared about what was going on in the background. And with this film, you just don't care as much about what's going on in the background. Like the kids are cute in it and everything, but you don't really care. I can be mad all day about how the stepdad sacrificed himself by realizing that his kid didn't have enough air, so just sending her off on her own with a tank of oxygen instead of just picking her up and sharing the oxygen. They weren't that far away from everybody. Like, they were a little bit far back, but they weren't far enough back that by the time that everybody realized that they weren't there, they could have shared this tank of oxygen and then talked about it. Like, Randy Quaid's death in Independence Day, you felt something when he died. You felt proud, you felt pride, you felt sorrow, you felt,
back when a character's death meant something.
It meant something, and it had a purpose. Like that death wasn't in vain. Like, he didn't die for no reason. And of course, if you're going to argue that, he died for his kid, fine, but let's work smarter, not harder. Like, he didn't have to die for his kid. It was truly pointless. And
it would have been hilarious. I mean, it would have been completely off tone. It would have been hilarious if, like, on the point of his death, someone shouted out to him, "Why didn't you just share the goddamn
Exactly. Why?"
And what's his face just goes, "Oh damn."
Exactly.
You're right.
At least play it for laughs. Yeah.
It would have totally ruined the moment, but at this point, who's actually taking this seriously?
Like, and to be quite honest, for them to have,
I can't take seriously a movie that says the moon is helping us when the moon is destroying everything.
Destroying you as is, yes. Well, and that's the thing too. Like, why am I super surprised that this guy died for no reason when nobody else is dying for a plethora of other reasons?
Very quickly, there's no way humanity could have survived. Like, with this type of damage we see in the film, it's not just like certain areas, by the way. No, this has to have happened across the entire globe, because this moon went around the entire globe.
Yes.
And just created chaos everywhere. It moved the Chrysler building to freaking, I don't know, Mount Everest or what, not Mount Everest. Yeah, Mount Everest or wherever they landed at the end.
Yeah.
There's just no civilization to return to.
Yes.
Unless the benevolent AI gives a hand, which maybe could be implied at the end after credit. Not at the end. But
Personally, my fix for that is not to do the whole Moonfall thing. That it makes no sense. It just couldn't happen.
It's the title. I get, and that's the appeal. You want to see this crap, but yeah.
Okay, but make that the horror that could happen, and not the thing that actually happens. Like maybe that is the AI's idea is to crash the moon into the Earth ultimately to just be done with it. But you could have solved this whole situation and had danger for these families if you had just split the evil AI and had the evil AI chasing them around the planet.
That's true, or there's something else maybe they could have done, which is since the benevolent AI inside the moon, inside the megastructure, is wants humanity to survive. But at the same time, you're making this movie for a specific reason and for a specific audience, and you want your crazy, stupid crap to happen on screen. First off, if the moon is that big in the sky, good grief, the planet's already done for. But maybe you could have had the benevolent AI maybe trying to hold back, or maybe realizing, oh crap, we're getting too close to the Earth and we're destroying the humans on it. Let's maybe, I don't know, diffuse or crunch down or whatever the white dwarf star inside, and maybe reduce our mass so that we cause less damage despite being so damn close.
I think that's what it was trying to do.
If it did, then I missed it. But
yeah, well, which is understandable if you watched
then,
it once, because your brain was on 1,000 other different things that were wrong with this movie.
My brain was. The point of enjoying this film is that your brain has to be on nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's kind of my point. Like, there's really no way to make the events that occurred in this movie regarding the actual moon changing its mass, changing its distance. Like, it really can't do that unless it was minute changes that were affecting the atmosphere. Understandably so.
Or maybe the AI was trying to the benevolent AI was trying to pull it back out of orbit occasionally.
Yeah, so that only it had been done.
So only only certain specific points and specific times got damaged without screwing over the entire planet.
Yeah.
And we're even at that point, you can add even more mystery of the characters going, wait, the moon's going back. What's going on? And then you add more mystery of what is this freaking moon?
Which, again, me personally, that would be hard. That would still be pretty hard for me to suspend my disbelief on that, because again, it's just not how physics works.
No, it isn't.
But if they did less and not more in that situation, I might have been willing to forgive it. But again, I just think that you could have easily remedied the situation by making the AI as smart as they should be for an AI that's been chasing these people all over the planet. Like, it literally could, it's an alien creature that could be coming down and attacking people, and that's the reason why people are in danger and need to survive, because this AI is chasing them around and they have to outsmart it and and keep themselves alive, and it creates a sense of danger. And meanwhile, this other AI is on the moon, drilling a hole in, and it plans to just Hulk smash these two celestial bodies together. That's the end game. That's not the entire movie.
That, or somehow there should have been some sort of secondary planet nearby that maybe the moon created, or whatever crap like that, where you could at least salvage people, considering Earth is so screwed over, or somehow sci-fi it a way back into place.
Or yeah, exactly.
Geez, I wonder there probably wouldn't be enough. There wouldn't be any space-time dilation stuff caused by all this, would there? Or would it not be enough?
I don't know.
The sun would certainly be maybe enough to do something. What am I saying? There's a white dwarf inside of this.
Exactly.
Holy crap. And so ignoring the fact that the characters, once they get in... Okay, the moon itself, built to contain it. Okay, maybe that's why it hasn't just consumed maybe the moon, the structure itself is keeping everything at bay without influences from outside. Is that why our Earth has survived all this time next to it? Fine. But once they're inside of it, not ignoring the fact that did we mention all the crops inside?
Oh no, we didn't even mention the fact that this moon is completely habitable.
Yeah, it's supposed to be habitable inside because there's the crops on the civilizations billions of years ago. I can understand, but they meant it to be habitable right next to a white dwarf star. How? Bro.
How does not any of the characters have radiation poisoning
or blindness?
Exactly. Like how? Like if
and
they
a
had
lot of
just
people point this.
if they had just taken a couple lines to explain that, I might have been okay.
Or even
with
just
it.
say that the benevolent AI is really trying to cram it in for the benefit of the characters inside, or something like that.
Yeah.
They are controlling it, and I can understand the crop fields, whatever. If you really reduce the output of the white dwarf star, it keeping the crops alive, I guess, through quote unquote sunlight.
Yes,
that's some very different food.
Yeah, very different from the sunlight that it gets out from our star.
Yeah.
By the way.
Where was I going with this? I forgot. There's so much crap in this
There's
movie.
just so much.
There's so much.
Yes. I mean, kind of on what you were saying, although this might have not been your point, so I apologize. But
I forgive you.
But the idea that this moon is habitable, if at the end of this story the Earth was decimated by what happened, which it should be, then what's his face, the conspiracy theorist guy, being a consciousness on this thing and having that last conversation, again, spoilers, sorry, but having that last conversation would make a lot more sense, because it would be like, now we need to get everybody onto our habitable moon and find a new place to live, because the AIs did a great job of destroying our planet. Like, they really did. It should be gone, guys. It should be gone. We all know this.
Yeah, I don't think... I'm pretty sure even the creators know this. I'm pretty sure even good old Roland Emmerich was like, I know this is happening, I don't care. I don't actually know if he has a German accent or not. Apologies, but yeah. I forget where I was even going earlier. The whole space-time the space-time continuum, how, I guess, if it would be enough, maybe one tiny little solution could have been that. And I don't know if this actually works in reverse, if it's actually the other way around. You can go the whole interstellar route, where if you have a white dwarf there, go inside the moon, which means a lot of gravitational pull, a lot of things that are cramped in there. Maybe it alters the space-time continuum and the characters who go inside it. And I don't know if it's supposed to, maybe like time dilates when they're inside, so they can have their whole things happening inside much faster compared to what's happening on Earth, speeding up the way they fix everything and reducing the time in which the moon can cause damage on Earth.
I mean...
again, assuming, if I'm remembering correctly, that more gravity means time goes faster.
You are correct, but I believe in that case what would actually happen is
they get crushed.
No. Even if we're going to suspend our disbelief on that aspect of it, I believe what would happen is that our brave team of adventurers would have a whole thing that would happen in a number of say they went in and they had, an epic space battle that took 2 days. There's a very real possibility that they walk out of that situation and 200 years has passed on Earth, because time is only faster in that situation. So it doesn't necessarily speed them up. It speeds them up, but like not in like a Benny Hill kind of way, where they'll just do it. Yeah, they'll do everything fast, and then they'll come out and only 15 minutes will have passed. It's like the opposite. Like they would have a lot of time on their hands, but the Earth is still going at its rate, so they get to stay younger, but everybody on the Earth gets to stay older.
So it's the other way around.
That's how it works.
We don't know physics, guys.
I mean, I know enough physics to know that if you whip yourself around the Earth at just below the speed of light.
Oh, you mean
can
you
travel into the future.
Oh, I was going to say, don't you reverse time like Superman did?
Yes, exactly. You just reverse time.
Oh,
you
Jesus.
just go counterclockwise to the Earth, and that's how time
And
works.
then spin it back into regular orbit.
Nobody's affected at all. Doesn't affect anything at all. But yes, I mean, this is essentially as ludicrous as that. I mean, and
Extended to an entire movie.
we haven't even mentioned yet the idea of seeding ancestors and the implications of how you seed genetic material on a planet and not human genetic material,
Just
just genetic material, and have it actually have the chance to evolve into the same type of creature
And
as was
that
left.
we will be discussing in a possible actual world building films episode. So stay tuned for that one of these days. All right. So anything else or?
I mean, there probably is. Let's not lie.
There's too much to talk about.
But I think that's
And
all
even
that I have the mental capability to discuss.
Yeah, exactly. I can say that I feel myself gravitationally pulled towards tiredness.
But I would happily read comments and concerns that anybody else has about
Please
this.
do, guys.
I mean, we've missed things. We've had to have missed things. So
I mean, I'm pretty sure we know everyone has talked to death about this film. Like everyone, and we probably haven't contributed that much. Maybe we hope so. We did, but yeah. Please leave a comment down below and share and like and subscribe, obviously, and we'll try to respond as soon as we can. And we are very curious to see what you have to think about this very, very special movie. And who knows, if you keep commenting, you can help the algorithm that will turn into an AI that will seed another moon. And humanity will be doomed, and it'll be our fault. All right, folks, so I guess that's all for today. Thank you for listening to World Building Chats, and we will see you in the next episode.
Bye.